Folks, it is offer sheet time. And the reason we are diving into this is because there have been a multitude of articles and conversations amongst NHL analysts and media about the offer sheet, and whether or not the climate around the NHL is shaping up to see more of this kind of activity. Now, I'm a Vancouver Canucks fan. So obviously, we're going to have a Vancouver spin on things. We're going to be talking about some of the names that Frank Seravalli discussed on the DFO show as to whom it is could get offer sheeted. We're going to bring up some other names because now we're starting to open ourselves up to the idea of off-season move video topics. And that is, of course, something that I'm choosing to do because the Canucks are not really in the playoff hunt anymore. They've got a 1.9% chance of making it. So let's get into this article. This was written by Ben Steiner. Big shout out over to Ben, local Vancouver guy who does some really good work. He's done stuff for CBC and, of course, here for Daily Faceoff. Whom would you target for an offer sheet this offseason? What I love, absolutely love about this article is that he used whom correctly. You could get away with saying, who would you target for an offer sheet this offseason, and no one would bat an eye. But the fact that it says whom, grammatically correct. I love it. Essentially, though, Ben doesn't actually write anything in this article. He just goes out there and transcribes what Carter Hutton and Frank Seravalli spoke about on Monday's episode of Daily Face-Off Live. Seravalli asked, who would you target with an offer sheet this summer? I got one guy right off the top of my head on another team that's on the brink of elimination but has actually played better of late. It's the Buffalo Sabres, and I'm looking squarely at JJ Peterka for an offer sheet. That's a good one, Hutton said. I think Peterka is a guy the Sabres have to try to pay, right? I think we're definitely going to see some offer sheets this summer. It feels like Bill Armstrong kind of set the table for that last year, right? It always felt like the offer sheets were a no-go. It was kind of where there was a line drawn in the sand, and you didn't cross it. For me, with Bill Armstrong being aggressive last summer, and I think the Edmonton Oilers, looking back at what they lost, it's changed the landscape in that department. I think we're almost destined to have at least one offer sheet this summer, Frank Seravalli said, and the interesting part is looking at some of the guys that are off the board already. So this is what Seravalli and Hutton spoke about. JJ Peterka as a potential offer sheet target. Let's talk about him a little bit later into the video. We also had ourselves Elliot Friedman on the 32 Thoughts podcast a few days ago say this. Philadelphia has, in 2026, they have their first, they have their second, they have their third, they have their fourth, they have 7 draft picks in the first 2 rounds this year. Teams are starting to look around and saying, is that going to be the offer sheet team this year? So maybe not even Vancouver, but Philadelphia in there as well. Offer sheets out of Philly? That certainly is an idea we can talk about too. Michael Russo had an article earlier this morning talking about how this could be the summer of offer sheets. NHL executives and agents on why a boom could be coming this offseason. This, of course, is an article with Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg on the cover because these guys were offer sheeted from Edmonton and they were acquired from Edmonton. This certainly does open the door to some bigger and better conversations about other guys. However, even though this Summer of Offer Sheets article was posted by Michael Russo, you did have some pushback on the idea. Pierre LeBrun went out there and said this, while I do think the Blues offer sheets last summer opened some eyes, especially given how civilized it was with the Oilers, I actually don't think we'll see an uptick in offer sheets if for no other reason than the drastically rising salary cap. Teams will have room to match. I could be wrong, of course, though. So, a dual perspective here from Pierre LeBrun. This doesn't necessarily guarantee that a name like JJ Peterka could and would be offer sheeted, but I just wanted to dive into these two guys, maybe attack it from the Philadelphia and Vancouver points of views, because for Vancouver, there's been a pretty big discussion lately on social media from fans of this team as to whom it is the Canucks could offer sheet. There it is again, whom it is the Canucks could offer sheet, not necessarily who it is. But JJ Peterka is a really good guy. John Jason, as we like to call him in the NHL gaming community, JJ Peterka, 23 years old, from Germany, 6 feet 190, left-handed guy, signed down to the end of this season on his ELC. He was a second-round pick by the Buffalo Sabres back in the 2020 NHL Draft, and he played with the Sabres last year, getting 50 points. Great. This year, he's got 60 points, 23 goals and 37 assists, after being a very underrated pickup from the German leagues in the DEL a few years ago. The scouting report here reads that his unrelenting motor is a force multiplier in every zone. He's hard on every puck. He's an eager, willing combatant in board battles. He's violent, disruptive, a real pain in the ass. He'll make second and third efforts where other players generally relent. He's rarely, if ever, stationary, constantly scanning the ice when the puck isn't on his stick. This is what he was back when he was draft eligible, but he's really added a level of offensive productivity ever since stepping foot in North America 3 years ago. The interesting thing about this is I read the scouting report and I remember what I remember about JJ Peterka and his draft eligible season, and I think to myself, man, that guy plays Rick Tocchet hockey. He's very, very relentless, and he loves to get involved everywhere. Wherever the puck is, wherever the action is, JJ Peterka is in there. Not to mention the goal scoring and the playmaking. He's got really good offensive tools. I mean, 68 points in 70 games as a first-year AHL rookie in 2021-2022. In that season, he was only 20 years old. The Buffalo Sabres got a really good stud here in JJ Peterka. The problem is, we had already seen reports that the Sabres might be interested in trading this guy. And now, with the offer sheet door opened up, a team could potentially go out there and say, hey, we like what you do. You got 60 points this year. You're on pace for 67 in only 77 games. You could be a 70-point guy on a better team, maybe a 75-point guy. We want to offer sheet you 7x7, JJ Peterka. If a team goes out there like Vancouver or Philadelphia, both of whom, with Tortorella and Tocchet as the coaches, play a certain style that I think would match with what JJ Peterka is able to bring, having this guy as a potential addition could be a huge top 6 ad for any of these teams. Now, JJ Peterka isn't the only guy here that we can talk about. Obviously, Connor Bedard is a name that you could bring up in an offer sheet capacity, but his contract doesn't expire this season. It's going to expire next year, so if anything, the offer sheet discussion should be just kind of held off until then. But if you head over to puckpedia.com, you look at the RFAs for this upcoming offseason. Gabe Vilardi is here, Evan Bouchard, JJ Peterka, Marco Rossi, Nyes, McTavish, Voronkov, Luke Hughes, Capo Caco. There are a lot of guys here that could be on the cusp of doing something great. Noah Dobson is also an RFA whose contract is expiring. The folks on The Athletic in the Summer of Offer Sheets article went out there and spoke about a few of these guys, Nyes, Rossi, Bouchard, and when you think about whether or not a team could offer sheet any of these names, I mean, this is where you start thinking about Pierre LeBrun's point. Do you think Edmonton would allow Evan Bouchard to get offer sheeted and let him go for nothing? Or for the draft pick compensation, I guess you could say? Probably not. They probably learned from their mistakes. They probably saw Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg pop off in St. Louis, and they're saying, okay, we cannot let this happen again. The cap is rising. Let's just give Evan Bouchard whatever the hell it is that he wants, and if he gets offer sheeted, we'll just match up because we can't afford to lose this guy. You could say the same thing about some of these other teams. Hey, Toronto finally getting breathing room. They might be able to pay Matthew Nyes some money, even though they've got this Marner negotiation that's been kind of in the forefront of everything. Marco Rossi in Minnesota is an interesting name because he's a very strong talent, very good name, but the Wild just don't really seem to like him all too much. It's interesting. Luke Hughes. Could this guy be an offer sheet target? Vancouver getting another Hughes brother, stealing Luke from Jack's Grubby Paws? Who really knows? Capo Caco, Will Cooley, Simon Holmstrom has been a goal scorer this year. There are a lot of interesting names offer sheet eligible. Heck, I'm not even too sure what the real meaning is between offer sheet eligible, because the article does say that there are some RFAs this season who are not offer sheet eligible. I don't understand the difference between what makes a guy offer sheet eligible and not. We're just looking at the RFAs here, and I do know that some of the more prominent ones, like the Rossis and the Bouchards, are eligible for offer sheets. So if anybody has the actual qualifications for an offer sheet caliber guy, please let me know in the comment section all your updates on that. But also, When it comes to Philadelphia and Vancouver, what are your thoughts on any of these teams giving out an offer sheet? What are your thoughts on JJ Peterka being mentioned as a suitable target here? Do you think it's going to happen? Do you think it's not? Who do you think gives the offer sheet in 2025 that we are all talking about? Let me know in the comments all your opinions. I hope you've enjoyed this video. And bye.